Hi everybody, welcome and or welcome back to my channel. I appreciate you being here. Today I'm going to show you how I made a three-tiered shelf. I'm going to take these Dollar Tree crate or trays, whatever you call them, and break out a piece from the side to double two of them up, but we're going to need four of them plus two, and I used Walmart paint stir sticks because I could cut them with my miter shears. The lows are so thick that I can't get through them. I don't know if I had more hand strength or whatever. But anyways, when you take the sides off of these, there's always a little lip there that you will have to cut off of both of them to be able to fit them together. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a sand. I was showing you there. I kind of cut into it a little bit and made it a little bit uneven. But you're not going to be able to tell it later because we're going to shiplap it with Walmart's jumbo craft sticks. So you do need some of those too. Plus to cover the handles. Because the handle side will be the side that's out towards the front of the shelf. So anyways, I'm just sanding it down smooth, giving it a kind of a smooth finish to be able to sand them together, or sand them together, oh my goodness, to be able to glue them together. They fit together pretty nicely, so there's not much of a gap. Figure out which way. And some of these break apart a lot easier than others. So I happen to have one that was really, really nice, and then one that was not so nice. But anyways, I just used Gorilla Wood glue, and I'm going to clamp these. I didn't put anything in the bottom part, just glued it up at the handle area, and waited for that. And I'm showing you super glue on my fingers. I had fuzz and paper towel and everything stuck to my fingers. I exploded a whole tube of super glue on another project. It was a nightmare. I glued my fingernail tips to my fingers, but anyway, that's a different story. Anyway, so we're going to need 5 of the jumbo craft sticks that you get at Walmart, and we're just going to cut them down to size to fit inside of the box shelf. That's our bottom shelf. So I got these miter shears from Amazon. It's Gartol. They do not cut thin stuff. I don't know why. I can't cut thin. I can cut the smaller popsicle sticks. They're a little bit thicker. But when it comes to these thin ones, I just can't. It just won't cut them. It leaves a big score in them. But anyway, so there's a little bit of extra room when you put the 5 of them down. So if you wanted full coverage, you could always split one. I suppose they don't split very easy. So I just stuck with the 5, and I kept the gap to the back. It's just going to leave a small gap in there, which I'll show you in a second, but it's pretty quick because the videos have to be kind of short to keep people's attention. So, I don't want to go much past 20 minutes. Especially since it's just a single item that I'm making. So it's not a whatever you want to call it, video. It only has like one and done, I guess. But anyway, so I'm cutting this down, and I was going to put it on the inside, but I didn't like the way that it looked. So the one that I cut down, I'm going to save to put onto the front, whichever side I deem to be the front of the shelf. I'll put that on there. We're going to do some Mod Podge. We're going to Mod Podge some scrapbook paper onto there. So this one I'm just going to cut to fit the outside, and I'm going to glue that on there to cover the handle holes on it. Hope everybody's having a wonderful week or day, year. Okay, so Rust-Oleum, chalk, paint, and linen white. And this is really good paint. I don't have anything to compare it to because I've not used, this was my first experience with chalk paint. But anyways, it covered in one coat. I didn't have any trouble with it at all. We're just going to paint everything. All of our ingredients are going to be white. Then we'll distress it a little bit later. We'll distress it with burnt umber. Yeah, we're going to paint our two paint sticks and all of our boxes. Inside, out, everything white. Guys, I tried to distress these. Here, I'm just getting a feel for how do I want this to be. So I end up cutting off the handles. So I just cut it right where it starts to change shape. I cut them both down. At first I had debated on leaving those on, but then I decided no, I didn't like that. Now these cut through this thing pretty easy. It's not too bad. I use the table as leverage. I don't use my hand. I bump it against the table. Sometimes you got to flip it around a couple times, but it does cut. But anyways, I tried to distress these with Waverly Antique Wax, and all I got was smears, and it looked really bad. I mean, it looked like a really bad paint job. So I went with the burnt umber. The burnt umber didn't smear like that. I don't know how people distress with that Waverly Antique Wax. I just couldn't do it. It just looked sloppy. It was really sloppy. So anyways, yeah, I said this cut's pretty easy, but it doesn't look like it, does it? So what I have to do is I mark it, and then I have to mark it on the other side so that I can just flip it back and forth. And I probably need to change my blade. But yeah, so I went off camera and just fiddled around with it until it finally cut it. Some pieces are a lot easier than others. I don't know why that is. Like, I can cut through a tumbling tower block, which is thick, and then I'll turn around and won't cut through a paint stick. So, but I recommend the tool if you're a DIYer and you know, you deal with paint sticks and that. I recommend this tool. It's a very good tool, and it came with 2 new blades. I just need to change the blades, I think. But it did come with 2 new ones, so I don't have to turn around and buy new blades right away. But another issue could be my hand strength. Since I have arthritis very bad, it could just be that I'm not strong enough to do it. So I don't want to knock the tool, because when I first got them, I could cut through anything. Just not thin stuff. I don't know why, not thin stuff. I'm just painting the ends where I cut it, because we want the whole thing to be white. And the tool did kind of chew up the paint a little bit, chip some of that chalk paint off, so I'm just touching that up also. So I went through yeah, so I tried to use the antique wax on this. I thought I was going to cut that out. I must have forgot. But anyways, I used this, and it just smeared. Oh my goodness. You know, I wanted clean lines on it, and it just, I don't know, it was like smearing dung. I don't know. It just smeared. It didn't leave lines. It just smeared. So I repainted it, and then I went with the burnt umber and a chippy brush. And this worked so well. I just love burnt umber. I love the way burnt umber looks. So I focused on the corners, you know, trying to make the corners look really good. And I distressed the whole thing, everything. Every piece that we already painted, I went back in and distressed it. Smeared dung. Oh my goodness. I probably want to edit that, but I won't. Anyway, this burnt umber works so good for distressing. Every time I've used the Waverly to try to distress, now I love Waverly Antique Wax. I absolutely love the way it makes the wood look. But when it comes to distressing, I have never been able to do it. And I've watched other crafters, And I'm jealous because mine just smears. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Maybe if you know what I'm doing wrong, leave me a comment and let me know. But all it ever does for me is smear. I can never get it to just streak like this. I love the streaks this gives it. So we're going to do a little Mod Podge. I'm going to take a piece of scrapbook paper. I'm not sure if I got that scrapbook paper at Hobby Lobby or not. I do show the back of it when I go to use it. But it's very pretty, but it's really light. My husband told me not to use that one, to get a different one because it doesn't show up real well. But it's so pretty, and it's more like a, I guess what they call a shabby chic. I don't know, I just call it romantic. It's very romantical. Romantical, that's from Chu Wong Fu. Thank You for Everything, Julie Newmar. If y'all have seen that movie, that is the best movie ever, I think. It was very, like a heartwarming but funny movie. And of course it's got Patrick Swayze, Wesley Snipes, and John Leguizamo. It's a really good movie, but you know, they dress up as women. I don't want to be hurtful with my words, but it shows a different side of life. But anyways, I split my piece of wood here when I cut it. They like to crack when you cut them, and I just simply took some wood glue and sealed it right back up, and it closed right back up. So anyways, here's my romantic scrapbook paper. Now I'm going to mark out for each one of these, but when I do the two smaller ones, you see I put it on, I'm going to cut them all out at the same time. I do leave a little space in between them, a little bit, enough for the scissors. And when I do Mod Podge, I like to have it a little bit bigger so that I can sand it off. So here we go with a little bit of water. And it's very important, if you don't want blisters, I know a lot of people use glue and a lot of people just use the Mod Podge, but if you don't want blisters, you'll put the Mod Podge on the item that you're wanting to put the paper on, and you're going to get a good, a pretty good amount. And then you're going to take water and you're going to spray the back of your paper. And I don't have a sprayer, so I just use the brush and water, and of course it's got Mod Podge and water on it at the same time. I got a little bit too much on the watery look, so then I go back over it and I make sure that I don't leave, the brush marks all go the same direction. I make sure that I use long strokes on it when I color when I paint the Mod Podge onto the top. I just make sure that I use full strokes, and there's no stroke marks on it. But if you get too much water, just wipe it off a little bit and then go back over it. You don't have to re-Mod Podge it because you already have it on the brush. So here we're going to start putting it together while the 3 pieces dry, the ones we just put scrapbook paper on. So getting this centered was a job in itself because it's hard and I don't have a lot of table space there. So I tried setting it up, and then I get behind it there and kind of look forward just to see, and my ruler's only a 12-inch, so it's just done by eyeball. And then I made sure that I didn't move them both out of the way. I kept one where I wanted it to be, that way I could judge where I put the other one. If that makes sense to you, I hope. Or I hope that makes sense to you, not if that makes sense. So I got them where I wanted them, and then I only moved them one at a time. That way I knew I was where I wanted to be. And now the staple to me is very important. This is not, if you just use hot glue and wood glue on this, I just don't think it's going to be sturdy enough. So I use the staple to give it a little bit more stability. So now I want to make sure that I have a good distance between all 3 of my shelves. And this was hard because I have inches on one side and probably millimeters and centimeters on the other side. Well, what do I go by? Where do I go by? What do I do? So I just did my best trying to figure out how to make sure that I was even on this. So it's not as cut and dry as it probably is a lot easier than when I made it. But for me, this was, I just kept measuring, and I'd measure from the inside of the box, from the bottom of the box, down to the inside of the other box, and like that, to make sure that I had the same amount, the same amount of distance. And then of course you have to center it also, so that's another factor in there. And then I stapled it. No matter how you do it, it's not wrong, because if you come up with the correct measurements, I guess what I'm trying to say is the end justifies the means. So whichever way you have to do it is just fine. Do it that way. For me, I'm not good with numbers. I can read a tape measure just fine. It's just, I get confused when you're, like, I'm switching from millimeters to inches and whatnot. I just get discombobulated. So I finally went by this end and brought them down to the same, the same distance from each end of the paint sticks. So whichever way you have to do it is just fine. I'm putting it out there because it's in a video, so you get to see what a ding dong I am, and but and I laugh about that. Don't get me wrong, I think it's funny. I've lived my whole life dealing with not being able to be a good mathematician. But anyways, once your staples are in, you're really sturdy. It's a very sturdy thing. So now we're going to glue our pieces on, but first we're going to sand them. So when I do Mod Podge, I leave extras. I want it to be bigger than the thing that I'm putting it on. So I want to be able to sand it and distress those edges down a little bit. So that's what I did. So all three of these have to be sanded. And then they bowed on me really bad. I just showed you the little bit of a bow there. Well, it was really bad. When the Mod Podge dried, it just curled those sticks right up. So I ended up bending them and snapping them in half lengthwise to even them back up, because they were so bowed they wouldn't have even been able to stick onto the shelf. So I just bent them lengthwise. I bent them, and you hear the snap in the middle, and then I had a little bit of play there where I could lay them flat. So now I'm just going to distress over top of the scrapbook paper, make it look a little more rustic. And like my husband said, it's not real bright. I didn't want it to stand out. I mean, I couldn't think of any other scrapbook paper I wanted to do it with. I have buffalo check and whatever the other one's called, gingham. I have little gingham square scrapbook paper. I had little hearts, but I didn't want it to look too Valentine-y, because I want it for everyday use. So I just picked, kind of a neutral scrapbook paper. And I think it turned out looking really pretty. So I really, really appreciate you watching. I had fun doing this. This was a lot of fun. So good luck in your DIYs, and I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll hit like and you'll subscribe, and I hope you'll come back. Thank you so much for watching. This would look good on the wall also.